Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to give you another episode of my weekly Q&A titled People's Questions, where I answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the past week. We got a pretty average episode this time around. We didn't get anybody new. There were a few questions that I was able to answer in the comment section of these last videos, so make sure you check your notifications if you are one of those people. But we have about 6 questions for this particular episode, and nothing out of the ordinary, so we can just jump right into it. But like always, if you happen to enjoy this little Q&A, or if you're new to the channel, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and press that subscribe button to help grow the channel, because every subscription does help us get us closer to our goal. So, starting off with probably the weirdest question I got comes from Winter Ghost, and I swear to God, I don't know why people. I get it, but then I don't, I get it, but then it doesn't make sense. And it's like comparing Infamous to Prototype and wanting to mix the two. It's like they're so similar, yet they're so opposably different that just... But your question was, if Infamous Second Son and Prototype were to have a crossover, do I think it would end well if the Blacklight virus were to reach Seattle? Also, if Blackwatch and DUP were to team up to capture Mercer and Delsin. Okay, there are so many problems with this question on so many levels. Okay, the Blacklight virus, and you want to put it into a situation in which we're dealing with conduits. So what you're asking is, you're asking for ostensibly a viral outbreak to happen pretty much in like the X-Men universe, because that's really what Infamous is. It really is just X-Men, to be fair. That's really to its core what it is. And you want Blackwatch, who specializes in fighting a virus, to team up with DUP, in which they specialize in fighting a conduit. And you think that Mercer and Delsin are going to team up. This is the problem with trying... pitting them against each other makes sense, but when you're trying to mix them, there are so many conflicting problems here. Number one, there's nothing about this whole scenario that makes any sense, because there's too much going on. I don't know. I don't even know how this could play out. You have a viral outbreak and conduits. They just don't mix. They really just do not mix. The DUP would never team up with Blackwatch, because they have opposing objectives, and you can't just tell them to work together. That would be asking like the FBI to work with, I don't know, Al-Qaeda. It just doesn't work. They have different approaches. They have different purposes. This is apples and oranges here. This question just cannot happen. I have no idea how you could possibly cross them over. When I pit two characters from different franchises against each other, I make sure it's on a neutral location that makes sense for both characters to exist in. But you're taking two completely different scenarios and trying to mix them together, and it just cannot work. So I'm sorry, Winter Ghost. I honestly have no idea how this will play out. I have no clue. This is the most conflicting question I've seen in a long time. But you stumped me. Congrats, you stumped me. Next question comes from Super XD Extreme. You want to know, do I think that the sword spawned from Devil May Cry 5 is as advanced as Cloud's Buster's sword from Advent Children? Okay, this is another conflicting question. Okay, here's the problem with comparing the Dante to the fusion sword. The Dante is powered up with demonic power. It's basically a situation. It's comparing demonic power to simple mechanics, because there's really nothing too special about the fusion sword, except it's just several different swords that are like interconnected into each other to form one big sword. So mechanic-wise, they're just so different. As advanced, I wouldn't say as advanced, but they put it like this: they each give the users options. They give them more. Put it this way: the swords that Cloud and Dante use at that point in their life give them far more options combatively than they have ever had at any other point in their life. I think that's the best answer I could give you. I'm not going to say as advanced because they're both meant for different reasons. So that I mean that's the best I could do. Next question comes from Sinovic, and you want to know: do I think they should make a sequel? Oh dear God. Do I think they should make a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order? And if so, what would be my pitch for the plot be? Sinovic, you might be a little bit late on this, but Disney has already, they've confirmed that they're working on a sequel as we speak. This has been confirmed for months. I mean, they haven't made an official trailer or an official announcement, but just from several press releases that they've had over the past few months, they have come out and said that, yeah, we want to make more. You see, just to simplify it, Jedi Fallen Order was very, very successful financially, and it was critically acclaimed across the board. Everybody liked this game, or if there were people who didn't like this game, it was very, very small. So it is clear that is the direction that the mass majority of Star Wars fans like me would like the franchise to go in terms of its video game department. And they heard us, and they want to make more games like that. So it is probably a safe bet to say that we are without question going to get a sequel. No question. It'll probably come out during next gen, obviously. And if you're asking me what the plot would be, at this point, I don't really care what it is. I just want a good story and a fun game to play. I didn't know what the plot was going into the first Jedi Fallen Order, except the bare minimum. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had a damn good time with it. And I can expect nothing less but just the same thing to come from the sequel. So, yeah. Next question comes from Shadow Decis Gaming, and you want to know, do I think that Voldemort would make a good Sith Lord? Depends on what era. Do I think he could make a good Sith Lord? Absolutely. Do I think he would make a good Rule of Two Sith? That's tough. I'm not sure he would be. Knowing him, I don't think he would like that idea of only having just one apprentice. Do I think he would want to build his own order? Sure, I could see him doing that. But then he would have to kind of worry about infighting, and then one of his apprentices trying to take him out, or several Sith teaming up to try to take him out. I mean, that's the problem with the Sith in general, is that they're constantly at war with each other. That's just a vicious cycle. But overall, I mean, yeah. I think if you look at him character-wise, he absolutely has everything that a Sith Lord would need to be a pretty ruthless person in the Star Wars universe. It just all depends on where you place him. So yeah, overall, I do think he would make a pretty solid Sith Lord. Next question comes from the Batman of Neo Gotham, and you want to know, do I think that there were any upgrades Gray Fox could have gotten through to improve his effectiveness as a cyborg ninja? Batman, the problem with this question is that Gray Fox's enhancements were already state-of-the-art. There wasn't really, at that point in time during the Shadow Moses incident, there weren't really any upgrades he could have had. He already had all the best upgrades that you could get for a person who had been that badly damaged, both physically and mentally. So I really don't think, now, if he had lived, say, an extra 10 years... do I think there's some upgrades he could have benefited from? Sure. But at that point in time, by the Shadow Moses incident, he was already as jacked up as you could get a person. So, yeah. And the last question of the episode comes from Monkey D. Jimmy. Odd name. And you want to know, who do I prefer, David Hayter or Keith Sutherland? Okay. Why in God's name would I pick Keith Sutherland over David Hayter? I mean, number one, Keith Sutherland never voiced Snake. Spoiler alert, he never played Snake. I mean, that was one of the key reasons I really despise that game, and I refuse to acknowledge it as being a part of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. David Hayter is Snake. He is Snake in Big Boss. Now, I have a vague memory of exactly what happened. I don't know if David Hayter and Hideo Kojima are still on bad terms. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think someone said that Hideo Kojima didn't want to use David Hayter because he wanted to get a voice actor who actually had talent. I mean, that's what I heard. But when you actually play the game, if David Hayter had actually looked at the game, he would understand why we can't use your voice, because this character is not Snake. You're Big Boss and you're Solid Snake, and they're genetically close, so of course the voices would sound similar between those two characters. And as Big Boss got older, his voice would naturally change, which is why they use a different voice actor for old Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 4. But if we're talking about the character that they used in, you know what game I'm talking about, then it doesn't make sense for David Hayter to voice that character. So I don't really see a reason why why he would be upset about that, because he wasn't playing. He would not be playing Snake. He would be playing a completely different character that brings up just more questions than it does answers. So no, I'm going with David Hayter 10 out of 10 times. Keith Sutherland just played some random character that completely destroyed the mystique of what made Big Boss special to begin with. So yeah. And with that, those are pretty much all the questions that were sent to me for this particular episode. I would like to thank everyone who sent in your questions, either whether I answered them in this video or answered them in the comment section of the last video. If you would like me to answer your questions, hopefully for the next video, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly around Wednesday, around noon, before I start filming the next episode. And if you want to increase your odds of having them answered in the video, just make sure they're a little bit more interesting or have a little bit more depth. Otherwise, I will answer them down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.